Design has become a luxury, but there need to be systems by which design percolates to the poor.
The internships are like the engagement phase in a marriage.
Every act, every line needs to be intentional. What I've built, yes, I've built stories.
Welcome to another episode of Zero Beyond Blueprints. Today on the program we have architect Gita Balakrishnan. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Akhilesh. Thank you.
So, Geeta, let's just get started with your life journey. You've done some very different work from what a traditional architect does.
Yes.
So, can you just talk about your childhood upbringing and how did you get into this, and then we'll get into specifics of what you've built.
Sure. What I've built, yes, I built stories. But yeah, let's start with. I know you're from Kolkata. I was born in Kolkata, but we moved out when I was really young, just about a year old, and spent a lot of my childhood in Hyderabad, which is where I mean, till class 9, so it was almost 12, 13 years that we lived in Hyderabad and explored the typical lifestyles of the Telugus and the Hindi, Urdu-speaking friends of mine, and went to a very simple convent and had, friends who were very down to earth and simple. And I think that was my basic initial upbringing. We moved to Delhi during the Asian Games, 1982, and that was a huge culture shock change because you came from Hyderabad was not the city it is now. I was someone who used to be cycling on the roads of Hyderabad, going to school. I was the only girl in those days going to school by cycle. And it seemed like a long distance when I was so much younger. But when I actually go there now, it was barely 1.5 kilometers that one was cycling. But so that was the move to Delhi kind of was a huge shift in life. One, because I needed to move from a state board to a CBSE. Language, because until then Hindi second language hoti thi Hyderabad mein, but here the standards were far higher. You had to figure out what chand and dohe were and understand the world of Delhi, which was very, very aggressive, social, very different from what I was used to until then. And so that needed a lot of getting used to. And then, of course, moved into studying architecture, which also was not exactly the field I would have chosen for myself. Although as a young kid, I did a lot of explorations with the brick and mud that used to be in our backyard. And I also had the landlord that built our house was a civil engineer. So we had this beautiful model in our house of the whole house and with plaster of Paris, and it's something that one grew up with. And I did play around a lot with the mud and earth in the backyard. But it was still not something that I would have chosen for myself. My uncle, who's a civil engineer in Chennai, kind of inspired me and introduced me to the field. And lo and behold, I took the entrance exam at SPA and I was part of the community.
So you graduated from SPA which year?
1990.
1990. And then...
Were you born?
I was... yes. 88. Okay. Not too far off. But that now you're... I don't know. But once you came out of college, then how did life turn for you? Did you practice at all?
Not really. So I did my internship in the US.
Okay.
Which is also something very unusual for those days because going abroad for an internship, which is a 6-month stipulated internship, was not common. Now you have people going to every nook and corner of the country, the world for internships. So I needed to do it for myself to kind of break out into being a more confident individual. So I did start writing, getting in touch with this professor at Carnegie Mellon University, Pittsburgh. And, those were the days where there was no internet. There were no, it was very expensive to make calls. It was long letters on a regular basis.
And Pittsburgh's not the most happening of towns.
It was, even when I was there, it was on the living index, it was amongst the top 3.
Yes.
And even today, it's as far as livability goes, it's among the most livable cities.
It's very slow and...
Yes, it is. So it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're looking
Yeah.
for. So it was, and I didn't know what to expect from the US. I'd never visited until then. So it was way back in 1990. I remember Jan 20th. I land in the US with all borrowed woolens and shoes because it's
It's
middle of,
freezing.
yeah, it's
It's
freezing, and I
freezing.
land in New York. My aunt picks me up, and then you experience the metro for the first time, and you wonder, why did I? New York was really shabby those days, and you're wondering why you're even in a place like this. You have strange people. I remember sitting in the metro, and there was this guy like a hobo across me, trying to, hypnotize me of sorts. He's actually doing this to me, and I'm like most uncomfortable. And then I went into Pittsburgh, and then I realized, how beautiful
Yeah.
a place can be. And I think that definitely widened my horizons. But I was very clear I would go back to India after the 6 months of interning, and I went back. We moved to Bangalore. Dad moved to Bangalore, and Bangalore is where I did try for just about 6 months of my whole life to work with an architectural firm. And I wasn't comfortable with myself. I did want to look at things that gave me happiness, that made me feel that I was doing what I really wanted to do. And I actually took a course with Indian Institute of Science, the Karnataka State Council for Science and Technology, on making of stabilized mud blocks. And it was a 3-week program where we were actually pulling at the machine, mixing the sand ourselves, the soil, clay, and
Very
stabilizing it with
interesting.
cement ourselves, looking at what lime as a material would be, looking at how corbelled arches are made, and these are things we study about in college, but we don't really make it with our hands, maybe just gloss over them a little
Yeah.
bit. So this was extremely stimulating for me, and I felt really good about it. And I realized that there were not too many firms at that point who had practices with these kind of materials or these kind of intentions going, and came across an advertisement for a creative educationist in slums. Responded to it, and Anita Reddy, who's the main mover of Avas, the organization that I joined, uh, picked up the phone with great excitement when she knew I was an architect. She said, "We want you on board as an architect," because they were doing a lot of work with urban poor and
Mm,
homes and housing for them. And so began my career of sorts in the social realm.
very nice.
So yeah, when you say activist, the lines between being an architect and an activist actually blurred. I would be at 6 in the morning. I would be at a slum. I would be there till late night because during the day they worked. I would carry my lunch, sit at a slum dwellers, one of their homes. So they all became friends. In fact, the young boys, I used to go on my TVS. They would call me Luna Mele Maina. Luna is what it was, the brand
Right.
of a two-wheeler those days, and Maina is the bird. So, they would also be kind of flirtatiously referring to me as Luna Mele Maina those days. So they were very beautiful times. That's how my initial days of exploration started, really. And I was with Avas for close to 10 years, off and on, because there were breaks when I had my son, when we moved to Saharanpur for a year and a half in the middle because my husband's work took him there, and
Saharanpur
in
in
UP.
UP.
Yeah, and that's when I started writing. I started writing for magazines for people and so on, and then we moved back to Bangalore, and I went back to Avas, and now I'm a trustee of Avas as well. So
And then you completed a stint at Avas and you shifted to Calcutta?
yeah,
Back
2001 is
to.
when we moved lock, stock, and barrel to Calcutta. Again, husband's work took him there.
Okay.
So it was a pact between us. At one point, what I was doing in terms of my freelance and work was actually probably I was making a little bit more than my husband in those days. Although architecture pays very badly, I was working with an NGO. I was doing some freelance, and he said, "Would you like to take off? Then we can look at a different." So I said, "No, I really want to follow what I want to do, and if I have to uh, earn the money for the family, I think I may have to compromise on uh, what I would like to really believe in and pursue." So that's how we moved to Kolkata, because that was, and then it meant that I had a blank slate again, because you were beginning. I did feel very concerned about this move to Kolkata, but I think it was the best thing that happened because Ethos started, and what I do now actually evolved from nothing there at Ethos. And I think it's a very fulfilling feeling that you created so much.
For me, Calcutta has a very unique energy. It's very laid back. There is a certain amount of um, calm to that city.
Hmm.
I also feel there's a lot of energy in the city, but it's always below the surface.
Right.
Um, and I'm so glad that you had a really good time in Calcutta,
Oh,
and then
yes.
Ethos got
Yes.
born in Calcutta in a way because I left Calcutta, and if I had to go back there for work, if I had to shift back and had to work, I would never be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I always say if I need to retire today, this is the best city to go and live in.
So, well, it worked a little differently for us. Retirement, and we moved out of Kolkata. My husband retired last year,
Right.
and we chose to move. It's also because family is here. I think being outdoors people, the weather in Kolkata can be oppressive for most of the year. And we are really enthusiasts when it comes
Yeah.
to physical endurance and things like that. So, yeah, otherwise, Kolkata, the 23 years were very beautiful.
Ethos, I believe, started out as a kind of a social cause where you wanted to bring learning to outside the classroom, right? Was that the main motive, or what was the motivation to that?
So when Ethos started, it started with a simple quiz on architecture called Acumen, uh, testing architectural acumen. That was the first event that I launched. It was called Arcumen.
Okay.
And it's now a very popular event among students of architecture because it's 22
But
years old.
why did you launch such an event? Like, where did this idea come up from? And then,
Just dreamt it up. Brand equity was very big those days as a corporate quiz.
yes,
And quizzing was big in Calcutta,
yeah,
you know. And I said, why not a quiz on architecture? And it was just something that, just like the idea for a walk that I did later blew me off. The idea of a quiz in architecture kind of took me over completely. It possessed me. I thought it could be fantastic. I thought people would come scrambling saying, we want to sponsor it, we want to support it. And only when I got,
was
oh, it was so hard. It was so hard. I went out of pocket. The first quiz was hosted by Barry, and then I realized how much quiz hosts charge. The second onwards, I went and used Giri Balasubramaniam. He's got a moniker, Pick Brain, and he's out of Bangalore. So Giri did all my quizzes after, but the first one was by Barry. And you put budget together. You say, oh, 4.5 lakhs, we should be able to pick it up. And then I managed to collect about 1.2 in total, of which there were friends and people who also contributed. And I said, oh my God, what am I
it is
doing?
that hard,
It
right?
is, it
Yeah,
is. But it was a beautiful experience and journey because what we did also was we did it at the town hall, Kolkata town hall. It had just been renovated. The
Mm.
300 years of Kolkata had just been celebrated. So it was a beautiful venue. And I dovetailed a general knowledge quiz as well. So we did two quizzes. The general knowledge quiz was against paid subscription. So I managed to collect another 10,000 or so through the subscriptions, 1,500 rupees each team had to pay. And
Right.
quizzing is big in Kolkata, so they all came in. And then I actually went and got the fashion designer in town, Saba Kareem. I got all these. I would go and request them, and they came to ask questions as part of a
Right.
specific audience round or.
So hardcore hustle, right? To first get to know these people, get them
Absolutely,
on board,
absolutely.
get them excited
But it
to
was so
come
much
on. Yeah.
fun, putting it together. And then I again, now what do? I finished Kolkata, which is only the eastern, and all
Right.
these kids, the participants, they still remember they came and stayed at home because I couldn't afford to
Yeah.
put them up anywhere at that point in time. So they actually stayed at home. I remember taking up a orphanage, Graham's School. It's an orphanage, and I picked up some rooms there for certain kids in case I couldn't accommodate everybody. And all I could give them was a cake. I baked a cake and I took it to them and I said, this is what I can give for your orphanage, but will you give me rooms? So that's how the journey started. And then I said, how do I take it to Bangalore next? How do I take it to Delhi? How do I take it to Mumbai? And it meant the first year of Arcumen, which should be 4 episodes, which happened over 2.5 months now, took me a year and a half to do because then I had to go and market the second event. And I remember sitting, those were days again where you did not do these things off a laptop. You had people who would edit a video. Maybe we made a 5-minute marketing video on what happened in Kolkata and then showed the enthusiasm and managed to market it to somebody in Bangalore. And
Did you not feel somewhere at that point that this is not going to go anywhere? Like that doubt?
no, I
You like convinced that
convinced that
something is
we'll
going to
do
come
it.
out
Yeah,
of
I
this?
said, yeah, we'll certainly do it. And the Bangalore event gave me a huge shot in the arm. We had 750 seater JN Tata Auditorium packed, and so much enthusiasm because again, Bangalore quizzing culture is big. Architects are lovely.
Very passionate.
Yeah, and I managed to make the best of friends there
Very
because I'd
interesting.
lived in Bangalore earlier also, right? So I could connect back through friends, circle in and find certain architects and request them to again be that, ask those questions. And I remember Jaisim, Naresh, Prem, all of them coming. Prem's mother, Tara Chandawaka, was a great fan of the quiz. Old ladies, unfortunately, no more. But, she would be there at every event
Very
and so on.
nice.
So while the quiz was the initial excitement and an event, but I realized that like I was at crossroads. I did not know what I wanted to do with myself when I graduated, when I moved to Bangalore. And by chance, I got all the right opportunities. I thought it would be nice for them to have that choice to make. And Ethos offered that platform of sorts.
So what was the next step for Ethos then?
So I remember, in fact, if I could take a name, Sengobin came to me and said, we'd like to see if we can, take over Arcumen in the sense of
Right.
make it their own. And I said, it was like my baby and something that I could never part with. Now I'm a little more,
Dispassionate about it.
yeah, maybe more philosophical
Yeah.
also in a sense. And I say, it's okay. But at that point, there was a lot of ego. And I said, no. And then we said, why not a design competition? And that's how the first design competition. And I don't think those were times where there were design competitions for students
Right.
so much. This we're talking 2005. So we conceptualized Transparence as a design competition that we launched.
And this is in collaboration with
Saint
Saint Gobain.
And it's still, it's going to be the 20th year this year, although I'm not part of the initiative that runs it anymore. But it's the 20th year. And that was also very beautiful, crafting a design brief and making it as realistic as a problem that an architect would have if he or she was running an office, and getting students to start thinking on real life design problems. Not that they don't get to do that in thesis in college, but this was very serious constraints that you would face. We would give them a real site that an architect actually has in an office, and we would tell the architect to actually be the person who mentored the brief and put the whole thing together. And then the next thing I did was, I said we must think about. Of course, this also evolved a lot, Transparency, but we said we should think of a competition on sustainability. And I wrote out a brief. And I went to the sustainability cell at my husband's office and we chatted. And they said, you must talk to IGBC. And that's how the IGBC Green Design Competition started in 2006. And we've been doing it for 19 years now. COVID, there was a break. That 1 year they didn't do it. But otherwise, every year we've been doing it. And that's also evolved. Shahrukh Mistri's office used to be actively involved. And Shahrukh Mistri, who's dear friend who passed away last year, was kind of the soul of the contest of sorts also. And so after which many people started coming in and saying, would you do this for us? Would you craft a competition? Yeah, so it's been a fabulous 22 years of working with students, with colleges. How do you keep them? How do you ensure that colleges realize that you're a partner and you're not, replacing what they do at college? We don't need, that's why I would keep saying, we don't need to repeat what you're doing at college. We need to find what gaps are there and try and,
I was going to ask
them.
that because at some point the colleges would start looking at this as a threat or a competition.
No,
right?
they really believed that it enhanced their pedagogy, their way of teaching as well. And that's what we brought to the table. We said it needs to be collaborative. You run it in your college if you have to. We will support. And we also wanted students to realize that there was much more to their lives beyond the college. They needed to know where the bar was
Yeah.
outside. Sometimes you keep it very low, and then when you realize there's so much more outside, you try and reach higher. I think exposure to what to expect needs to be, the expectations need to be tempered, and exposure to reality on through and the internship semester is meant to be that in some ways, that we have a mandatory 6 months, 1 year, 240 days kind of an internship, but unfortunately it's not curated. You just write to an office, the office is looking for an extra hand, they say yes, come, and they just say acha isse ye kara do, usse ye kara do, kind of a thing, but it never ends up being okay. This kid is joined in at the end of 4 months or 6 months. At the end of that, what do we want him or her to be equipped with? What does he or she want to be equipped with? And can we curate that learning pathway? And that's something that unfortunately happens very rarely. In architecture, since it's a 5-year program, figuring out happens only at the end of 5 years whether
Yeah.
you want to stick. You can't figure out in the middle because you can't get in anywhere else. You don't do the basic science. The subjects are so different that you aren't prepared to do a major in any other subject. It can be an MBA, but very rarely something else that you seriously develop a love for. And that is something that probably needs to change. And the new education policy, there is talk of the possible path changes after the 3rd year. Then you get out with a BSc or something like that, and then choose to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's fair, I think, because
But we still have to wait for the new education policy to
it's
formally come out.
it needs to kick in
Yeah.
completely.
It's
It'll
been
take a while.
in limbo for a very,
While,
very
yeah,
long
yeah,
time now.
yeah.
And then, so while this work was going on with Ethos, did you make a living out of Ethos? Like, was it sustainable, or was it just a passion project that was going on the side?
No, while it was certainly a serious passion project without a doubt, and like I said in the beginning, making a living was not necessarily did not fall on me. Uh, I think I made more than what some architects make also probably. I put it back into, plowed it back into the organization to then we say, okay, we build the website, we get more
Sure.
people in, we look at newer avenues, what else can we do, and so on. But I want people to realize that, you can certainly look at a career out of these alternate pathways also. And you don't have to assume that just because you're choosing an alternate pathway, you're going to be doing things where you're going to struggle and you're not going to be able to make money. I think even social career paths, like I said, there was a time when I chose to work with Avas. The salary I was offered was 3.5 times what I was getting at the firm that I was working in.
Really?
Yeah. Also because I think they realized what I brought to the table. The NGO needed
No, but
that
even
kind of
then, the
support.
NGO had the foresight and the wherewithal to
Yes,
realize that if they need
yes,
to hire talent, then
yes, yes.
they need to pay for it, right?
That's the depth of what comes with the person at the top also,
Yeah.
I guess.
Let's get to the walk now.
Okay.
So, what is this walk all about?
So this walk,
First of all, what is this long walk for the audience?
yeah, so it was a 1700-kilometer walk that I did across 7 states in India. Started with West Bengal, started at Kolkata because I was living there, and ended
This
in
is which
Delhi.
year?
2022. When I was 52, and COVID was still there. Omicron had just
Yeah,
was raising its head. Or no, Omicron was just fading out.
fading out.
Yeah, January I caught COVID. February 13th is when I left for this walk. So it was conceptualized as, again, you asked me what Arcause is, so that I think will come into the picture now that I'm talking about the walk. Arcause was is designed to see how we can build a culture of responsible design, and bring in very key necessary uh, features of social and environmental justice into the way we practice. And I'd like to see, I mean, I talked about mud blocks way back in
Right.
1990, when it was called the course itself was called alternate methods of construction. And even today, it still remains alternate. It doesn't mean that everything that is built will need to be built with these materials. There are various ways in which we can look at it, but the market drives it and drives these trends in particular directions. And I think it's important for architects to start driving some of these trends, and the market as well, maybe
Right.
be the reason for certain trends that happen. So designing responsibly is what we are trying to inculcate through our cause. And I thought the best place, and we have this entire ecosystem that we've built over time of youngsters, students, colleges, young architects, senior architects, and how do we deploy all of that towards this? That was the objective. And hence, and also at some point I realized that we designers often keep talking within the community,
Right.
but don't really go out and make our presence felt. And this walk was a step in that direction, to really leapfrog those conversations and kind of take them to just change the direction completely, and say that if we need to stay relevant in society, we as a community of designers need to stay relevant. We need to be seen doing the right things also. I think we need to start leading our professional lives very differently as well. And so this walk was conceptualized as a initiative, while the stated the campaign motive was design changing lives, the power of design to change lives. It seems like a very elitist quote. The actual objective was to stimulate my community of designers, architects, people in the construction space, and to start being seen more in society doing things. So this every day we would have social media posts, and that was when the first handle was just created. People sat up and noticed, saying, what is this woman up
Where
to?
did you start from?
Kolkata. The reason I
Exactly.
start Victoria Memorial is where the flag off happened. The reason Kolkata is because I was living there. It could have been from, we did toy with the idea of doing it from various other places as well. But I thought the logical sense was Kolkata because I was living there, and Delhi because it's the capital. And walked through Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh.
And who was with
Rajasthan.
you on these walks?
The physical act of walking that entire stretch was mine. There were people who joined me at different points, like starting में थोड़े लोग थे, end में of course we had a commemorative 100 people walking. At different places there were a bunch of architects or colleges
just
that
come and join
receiving
you.
me, joining me on different days. There was a car, so through an architect friend, again we managed to reach Mr. Anand Mahindra, who connected us with his team, and they gave me a Scorpio, and TVS gave me a bike. So we had a back end. One is the team that was on ground team. Two of them who had been on similar such ventures before, and there was a photographer and a videographer, of course, who was constantly recording interactions, because this was not just about physical endurance. It was more about the interactions with nature, with people, with homes, with texture, with the environment.
Did
And-
not feel odd on day one when you just started walking, and then on day one I don't think there was any traction to this, right? It was just this
there
lady
was.
who wanted to just walk.
No, there was.
There was?
Because I committed to it in July 2021.
Okay.
I started walking in February 13th. On
So
February
there
13th.
was a little build
We
up.
spent a lot of time designing it. Originally, I was very naive. I said October I'll start and finish by December. Then I realized what a task it was. There was fundraising to be done. I had to pay all these people who were going with me.
Right.
I was carrying content with me. I was carrying flashcards. I was carrying banners, which we put up where we went in Hindi, in the local language, so people would understand. I had to create prompts to to engage, to ensure conversations happened. Like I would be sitting and doing my stretches, or eating my peanut butter sandwich while these flashcards would be lying on the table, and people would start, they will come.
Yeah.
There were times when I'm doing my stretches, they would come and say, "Kya नुमाइश करने वाले, exhibition yoga करने वाले हैं, क्या करने वाले हैं?" And that was also a conversation starter of
Right.
sorts. And then I would say, I want to see your house. What kind of homes do you build? Who are you? What do you do? And then they would see the West Bengal car. There was a West Bengal car. So दीदी को बता देना ऐसे करके, there would be conversations of that sort also that would happen. And so I think it was not something that just happened. And then it was November, I started training for it. So it meant a lot of training. You can't just, I'm a runner, but it still doesn't mean, doing 30 to 40 kilometers.
You must have averaged about 30-35 kilometers a day.
32 was an average. Yeah. There would be 1 day of rest every 7 days. And
the body does need rest.
No. But the team also did need rest, I guess. And then on December 3rd is when I went public. I put it out on social media. I sent it out as a WhatsApp to all my friends. We made a poster. And I used to largely be seen wearing saris those days. So I actually have a picture of me running in a sari with shoes, because there was a sari run in Kolkata during Durga Puja.
Right.
So that became the poster image. But I had to figure out what gear to carry with me and break into the gear and so on. Yeah. But December people knew, and then I started posting about my my training. So they knew. I'd say I'm walking today in Odisha. I happen to be in Odisha. I'm walking 21 kilometers here, or I'm in Kolkata in Rashbihari, and this is how. And I started posting not just about my walk, but what I observed, what I interacted, who I met, what conversation we had. So they knew that all those kind of conversations across the route are going to happen. So there were people who were looking forward to it. It became like a reality show of sorts. There were people who were WhatsApping and asking and sending prayers. And I actually injured my foot one day. There were people who sent me links on, meditative healing and things like that I could do. It was really intense. Yeah.
You started in Calcutta and you ended in
Delhi. So and Delhi, Rajghat se Red Fort was a 3-kilometer final lap that a bunch of 100 of us did together. But
so what was the route? Calcutta, Dhanbad?
No. Kolkata, Purulia, Jamshedpur was a detour by car that I did, but Ranchi.
Right.
Then I got into Daltonganj and then got into Sonbhadra. I did a longer route.
Yeah,
actually, the shorter is 1400.
Is to go via Dhanbad.
The reason I didn't was I had actually planned the route beautifully to go to Varanasi, Amethi and Raebareli and all that also, to see the political section of this. But elections were on. And around that time, and when I planned it, I didn't know when exactly the elections were to be, when results were to be announced.
Right.
And I didn't want to get stuck in that. So I said, let me take the longer route. So I did 250 kilometers more just so that, So I did Sonbhadra, Madhya Pradesh, Rewa, Satna.
Yeah.
That's the route. Chhatarpur and Gwalior. So the 6 action, before I come to the 4th walk, I think it's good to talk about the 6 action areas that came up from the first walk. One of them is called Shramik action, where we are talking about the hands that actually build homes and build, build your interior spaces, or anything that they do for the construction of a place. It could just be earth fill and things like that also. I don't think we give them their due at all. And this came about because of an interaction en route. On day 1 itself at Dankuni, when I stopped, there was a construction site where they were actually filling earth into the basement. And I asked this worker, "Kya ban raha hai yahan pe? Hum to mitti fill kar rahe hain." So most of the times, construction workers are either building a wall or a RCC roof or putting a partition, but they don't know if they are building that temple or that institution or that commercial complex or that home. And I think it's so important to involve them in that conversation. And that's another campaign that I'm hoping to run. I've been telling my architect friends that Why don't you make the presentation to them first? Why don't you give them that dignity? Why don't you give them that importance? Because uh, you know, they feel that they don't belong here, they don't want to be here, but they're doing it just because it's their livelihood. And if we start including them in these conversations, I think they feel respected and they want to be part of these conversations. So that's the first action. And there were various other discoveries that happened that I'm not spending time on, but construction workers becomes one action area for us. The second one is called Bodh, building on design histories. And it again comes about because I was in a place called Bharra in Madhya Pradesh, and there was two brothers who showed me their house. In great excitement, they spent 2 hours showing me a very modest mud hut with tiled roof, and every bit of construction there was by their own hands. The father and two sons had actually built it in 1972. 50 साल हो चुका है उस घर का, अभी ज़्यादा ही हुआ है. And they are telling me about things like how there is an extract from a rice crop that is used for anti-termite treatment. And ये कोई किताब में नहीं है. I've searched the net far and wide, I haven't found what that is. How do you document these things? I don't think we are going to be able to retain that house. I'm sure he's also waiting. He comes on the list for a grant, and he goes ahead and modifies his house to what most of his other friends in the village have, a modern house. And but how do you even, these are actual treasure trove of information, right? How people built their homes. When we're talking of heritage, we're often talking about monuments, but you don't live in monuments. Very few people associated with monuments. They're actually only 10% of the people use those monuments or were allowed into it. 90% of the history is actually should be told from the lens of homes, small marketplaces, small schools. So that's about both. I call the other monuments invisible monuments, actually. Udita is our third action area, which expands into universal design is the answer. And this came about because there was an interaction planned with a person with visual disability on my 51st day of my walk in Datia in Madhya Pradesh again. And that interaction made me realize how architects and designers can really be responsible for making spaces inclusive. I mean, we all talk about it, but I thought it should become like a real serious passion with every architect, that every space needs to be inclusive. And my fourth walk from Chennai to Bangalore, which was 335 kilometers long, was focused on universal accessibility. The emphasis was the supporter of the initiative. And the focus was meeting NGOs that worked in this space, going to, identifying buildings that were designed accessibly, to look at small interventions also that actually can make a big difference. Look at purple hiring in companies, which means that offices need to be made accessible. You need to have toilets that are toilets and even accessibility. And then you start talking about how precincts are not accessible. You might have a building that's accessible, how precincts are not accessible. So that's the third action area. Fourth action area is making design accessible to the poor. It's called Aadhar, affordable designer right. How do you reach design to the poor? Design has become a luxury. It's available, for a consultancy fee. I'm not saying I don't think architects can afford to give free design, but there need to be systems by which design percolates to the poor. And that needs to come through a model that we're trying to, make as a pilot model. Just like healthcare percolates to the poor, why can't design percolate to the poor? Is something, because I think that can help solve a lot of problems that the poor face. I don't mean only buildings. I mean, there could be water problems, quality of life problems. There could be, certain illnesses that come about because of certain infrastructural issues. And I think design can help solve many of these things. We have a whole lot of programs and initiatives where we're encouraging innovation in this space, product innovation, idea innovation, tech innovation, where we're paying youngsters to develop small ideas or mentoring them through a mentorship program to arrive at these ideas.
And this is all happening under the Ethos Foundation,
Yes, it's happening under the
which is
Ethos.
separate from the Ethos program.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And the fifth action area is sustainability. It's sustainability in action and thought. SAAT is the short form of it. And I think every one of us is talking about it, but I feel that in this whole race of green and sustainability, we've started accepting and assuming every product is kind of sustainable, while I think we need to really introspect. And that's why I said architects have the power to dictate trends, have the power to dictate the market, and I think we should own that power.
Sustainability has become...
A lot of people don't want to use the word anymore, but I think it's a very powerful word.
No, it is a powerful word. Everything that you do in life must be sustainable. If you're building a company, if you're building processes, if you're changing structure, whether it's through architecture, in whatever you do, you're taking on a new habit in life, it has to be sustainable, right? The sad part is that everything has to be sustainable now. So everything is sustainable. Even plastic bottles have become sustainable bottles. So there are challenges with it. But yes, you're
and
right.
The sixth action area is, we call it see value in design, Swades, where we take design to common people. I mean, I was talking about construction workers. Very often the construction worker doesn't know of the existence of an architect. He doesn't know that there was an architect who actually drew that plan up. And if the person who's actually building your dream is not your ambassador, who does not know of your existence, then where are we going to take it to other communities? So I like to come back that all of these are kind of linked in some ways, these action areas. We have a big project going, particularly in Shrama, for the last 2 years, where we've been running a program where one is we've been doing a survey of construction workers to understand their lives. But the second one, which is called Project Dignity, is really interesting, where we are curating a series of videos where construction workers are explaining their craft. They are becoming the instructor, and we are taking this to the classroom. The building construction class in colleges is where we are requesting them to integrate these videos into. So students are learning directly from the site on how a wardrobe is built, or a RCC roof is cast, or so many of these
Very
things.
Interesting.
So that we've made 37 videos already, and I've pitched for another 80 videos this year, waiting for the funds to come through, and then we will have the entire series out. The last thing that we are doing under the Shrama program is we're running workshops on financial literacy, on skills, on health. We ran one on CPR and resuscitation at construction sites. So the contractor is kind of giving them half a day off for them to sit with us and go through this program, and then we have a small lunch together and we break up. So we've done about 30 such programs across India. And there are other projects, and the project Udita I mentioned. There are a lot of things. We've created a course where students and young architects can understand how to design in alignment with accessible needs. So each of these action areas we have projects, and our vehicle is the college network. So we have 60 colleges that have signed MOUs with us to run clubs on responsibility. So we are allowing them the flexibility of innovating and creating their own initiatives, events, projects, and so on. So there's a lot of action. It's very exciting. The next few years are going to be.
This sounds absolutely amazing. And you've written this book, 1700 in 70. And you got Leander Pace too.
Yes.
Right, a lovely this thing, yeah. So what's the book all about?
It's largely about my journey.
Right.
About the 1700 kilometers that I did over 70 days. It does talk about these 6 action areas that were, and this was written 2 years ago.
Okay.
So it was just brewing at that time. Now it's taken a lot more concrete shape. So the ideas as they were at that point in time, why they were chosen, and etc., have been covered in this book.
Is there another book coming out as a follow-up to this?
Not right away. I think right now is the time for action. So I'm focusing on that. We've also got a nice large grant from Rainmatter Foundation. Not
Very
sure if
nice.
you're aware of, that's the CSR arm of Zerodha.
Okay.
And this year is going to be about all the activities we do under the grant from Rainmatter Foundation.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so
What my team tells me that you've had more than 35,000 students who have
more.
more than that.
That
Um,
probably is an older biodata.
so what's the count today?
It would be, like I said, ASEG has already got over 50,000 subscriptions. We would be definitely close to a lakh of students who have, I mean, many of them are still in touch, but they've gone through our annals in a sense. Because they've taken part in an argument, and you must see an argument to believe the energy that's there, because there's a lot of fun, wit, and they're learning through that. So they used to come in hordes to participate in the quiz. And then, of course, the design competition. So all of them have very fond memories of this. So they continue to stay in touch. So it's a great ecosystem. I think it would be easily about 100,000.
That is amazing.
Thanks.
To have had the opportunity, God willing, to have touched so many people's lives, to have been able to start
And to
off.
have your life touched by so many people. I think
Yes.
that's why we've got where we have, because there's been so much love, so much affection. I always am getting WhatsApp messages with ideas saying, why don't you look at this, why don't you look at that? And so they believe in what we are doing, and hence those suggestions keep coming in.
What would be your three biggest takeaways to a young architect who's just graduating out of college, coming into the workforce? Having seen everything that you have seen from a social standpoint, from what architects face through.
I think first thing I would say is there's no easy route. I think you have to work, be prepared to really work hard. Second thing is to understand that there is a difference between what you want to do and what you have to do, and both are essential to be able to bridge that gap between what you are and what you can be. I think you need to be able to actually make a list of all those things that you like doing, but also those things that you need to do to become that professional that you're looking to be, and make serious efforts. And there are people out there willing to help. Just go and engage, connect, collaborate. And I think collaborate is a very important word. Very often we are trying to keep things close to our chest. Sharing is how you'll grow. And I believe in open source, and we're doing a lot of that. That's going to be part of the projects in the coming year, on how we can put so much information out there, so you don't have to go back and collect that information. You can take off from there and do
Right.
things. So I think sharing is part of growing, and it's a hard 5 years, and for anybody graduating today, and I think they need to be prepared for that. That's how it's going to be, and there's really no easy way. You have to live those 5 years. There needs to be an equality between the different disciplines within architecture, that if I choose to be a writer, there's no shame in it. You're contributing as much and more as an architect who designs and builds. And please follow those alternate paths if they mean that much to you. And I think that I can't say that enough. I think that's so important, because there are so many people who've achieved, who are great photographers, but it's always been they're children of a lesser god because you didn't get to design. And that's not true. Many people choose to be different. Many people choose UI UX. Many people choose to be journalists. And I think we need to give them the same respect and dignity as we do to an architect who designs. Because without the support system, I think there's nothing in the design.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming on the show today. It's an absolute pleasure having you on board. I have learned so much, I cannot tell you.
Thanks,
And
Akhilesh.
It's very inspiring, that the work that you're doing. It's commendable. I did not think that this would be something that would be sustainable beyond, how do I
One
put it?
event, a few events a
Yeah,
year. Yeah,
and to be full time, it has been absolutely very humbling, and I've really learned a lot.
Thank you.
So thank you, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Fantastic. Nice talk.
Thank you.